Dollar Day Foundation is a real simple foundation that myself and two friends started in St. John's, Newfoundland. It all started with a simple walk up and down Water Street that I used to make every morning between my house and the Great Big Sea Studio. I passed a guy on the street there every day for about a month, and I heard about his mental health and addictions issues, and I used to give him $1. And when the recording was done, we hit the road as bands used to do, and I just thought about him all the time, and I wondered how I could give him $1 without actually being there. And that year, I just saved up $1 a day, and I gave it to a homeless shelter here in St. John's, and I started doing that, and I did it for a few years, and a couple of friends of mine thought it was a great idea, and then they thought we should start a foundation where if people wanted to give $1 a day, well, maybe we could create an easy way for them to do it, and we combine little donations from all over the place, and we'd raise, slowly but surely raise the state of affairs for mental health and addictions issues across the country. And so we started just over 2 years ago, and we're right around the $1 million mark already now for funds raised. So I'm super proud of that and super grateful for all the great work that people are doing, including Margaret over at Canadian Health Association.
A lot of our funding at CMHA comes from individual donations and very kind donors like Alan, who are willing to use their extraordinary platform to support us. So we thank you so much, Alan, for that. There was a recent study by Angus Reid that suggested that 50% of Canadians feel that their mental health has worsened since the pandemic, and 10% say it's gotten much, much worse. And we know across the country we have 78 different branches in all parts of the country that the phones are ringing off the hook with people who are feeling anxious, they're feeling stressed, or they're feeling that their current mental health and addiction problems are being exacerbated by the pandemic. And that's about the isolation that we're all feeling. It's also about worry about health, worry about finances, and the sense of uneasiness I think we all feel about not knowing when it will end and when we can get back to normal, or whether we will get back to normal. So that really takes a toll. We've had to shut our doors, unfortunately, because of the physical distancing we have to do. And so the branches have been really creative about setting up phone lines so that the staff can be repurposed and be answering phones from home. Programs that were in-person programs have become virtual programs. So things like recovery programs or programs like Bounce Back that would have featured an in-person element could now actually be delivered all online. So there's been quite a shift made, and people are responding really well to it. And our staff are just so pleased that they're still able to help, even though they can't meet with their people in person.
Well, yesterday marked 10 weeks in a row home for me for the first time since 1994. So I'm particularly worried about the mental health of my wife and family. We're not used to having me lumbering around the house for that long. I had to check my own mental health and the mental health of our gang on the road for years. Just because we work in an odd industry and we work and live so closely together when we're on the road, and also, our business is in projecting good times, and our industry is in bringing good vibes onto the stage, and in our case, and so we want to make sure we're creating an environment on the road where people can be as mentally healthy and happy as possible. And so we all learn tricks along the way. A lot of us, are very careful about making sure we exercise enough. And for me, that when I'm home, especially, that means an early walk with the dogs in the woods. And we're lucky to live in St. John's, of course, where, I can leave my house here in downtown St. John's and be in the wilderness in 10 minutes. But of course, for everyone, it would be different, wouldn't it? I mean, what different people need for their own mental health is completely individual. And we always encourage people in our camp to discover what that is, and once they've discovered what it is, to let us know how we can provide it for them, and that creates a better environment. And the whole Get Real program that Margaret and her gang have been running for the last while. Is just, I think it's such a great initiative to ask people how they're really doing, and it's like, just like, you've asked someone if they're warm or cold, you could ask them if, you could turn up or down the heat for them mentally as well. It's just as simple as that. You're all, the effort of trying to help people is often the biggest and the best step.
We started the Get Real campaign to celebrate Mental Health Week because we appreciated that what we need right now is social connection. We need to be reaching out to each other. As Alan was saying, one of the things that protects our mental health is it could be quite unique to that individual, but we know that most of us need human connection. And so the idea of Get Real was to have that increased connection, but also to not just say I feel fine or to just brush off the kind of social pleasantries of how we're doing, but to really ask each other, how are you? Just as Alan was saying, that it's important to ask the question, how are you really doing? Or are you okay? Or is there anything I can help you with? And then give a real answer instead of just saying I'm fine and brushing it off. Actually talk about how you really do feel, and that opens up a pathway to real connection and real support for each other, which is what I think we all need right now.
I feel that it's come leaps and bounds, in the last half dozen years or whatever, or certainly since we started the $1 Day Foundation just over a couple of years ago. I feel like people's willingness to speak of mental health and addictions issues the same way they talk about, broken fingers or cracked thumbs or whatever, is becoming more and more acceptable and accepted, and becoming more and more common. And it would be great if we could take the giant leaps forward so that mental health was spoken about like health, and I think that's the goal we all want, and I feel like we're headed in the right direction. When we started the $1 Day Foundation, of course, we sought out individuals, and always that's the core of our movement, or our, if you will, is just individual people giving $1 a day and being both economically invested and mentally and emotionally invested in increasing the mental health and addictions welfare of people across the country. But we also sought out some media and corporate partners to help us with a couple of things, and of course Rogers jumped aboard on the very first email about becoming a partner to help us do what we're doing right now, really spread the word about mental health and addictions issues, and the good work that we're doing at places like $1 a Day and at the Canadian Mental Health Association, but also to become a part of the movement themselves, and that includes all the people at Rogers and all the broadcasters like yourself and the people who work on both sides of the company, and it's been a real great shining example of how corporate partners for foundations like ours can both, walk the walk and talk the talk at the same time, to not only to support what you're doing, but then to become involved themselves. And so it's been a home run, and I'm super grateful to Rogers for all they've done.
It's quite extraordinary to have Alan's support. Alan's a national treasure, and he brings his, he brings his talent and his friends along at the kitchen party. And, Alan and I did this in St. John's as well, virtually in St. John's. And the host there was saying that she can't call her mother during these Facebook parties because that's her regular Facebook date with Alan. And so I've been so pleased to see the response across the country. And, it is about reducing stigma. It's when people like Alan, with his beloved fan base, when he comes forward and says the mental health of the people I see, at home in St. John's, and the mental health of the people on the bus that I'm with, my bandmates, is very important to me. I think that really raises the the consciousness of Canadians about the value, and it reduces stigma. And then to go even beyond that, to say we're going to support through fundraising is really showing leadership in this area. So we thank Alan a lot for doing this for us and for being such a champion for mental health.
There's a text to give option if people want to text to give. There's a dedicated donation place on the $1aday.ca website, and it's all for good causes. And so far, since this whole COVID-19 pandemic has struck us, $1 a Day Foundation, through our supper time sing-alongs, has raised just over $500,000 for Canadian mental health initiatives. So quite proud of that, and I'm quite grateful to the people who've joined and sang along and donated a little bit here and there.